Hey, what's going on, family? This is Richie coming at you with another episode of The Bridge. Today, we're going to talk about the Bible versus Dave Chappelle. Now, before I get into this, I want to say this. I like Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle is he is the best comedian walking around today. And many people consider him to be the GOAT. You get no argument from me. But Dave Chappelle just did a stand-up not that long ago, about a couple of weeks ago. And in his stand-up, he said something that really kind of bothered me. And not just him, but a lot of people are reacting to his stand-up in a way that I felt I needed to address. Dave Chappelle was talking about the Chappelle Show. And he was talking about how he used to, when he joined Comedy Central and he started doing Chappelle Show, he explained that he basically signed a contract agreeing that Comedy Central would be able to own the rights to Chappelle Show, and long after Chappelle Show was over and done with, they would still be able to make money off of Chappelle Show. This is a contract that Dave Chappelle, he chose to sign this. Nobody put a gun to his head. He was 29 years old and he signed this contract and he agreed that Comedy Central could own the rights to Chappelle Show. Now, later on, Chappelle realized how stupid that was for him to sign that kind of contract, and now he's mad that Comedy Central is still making money off of Chappelle Show. Some of you guys been watching Chappelle Show on Netflix. Some of y'all been watching it on HBO. Well, Chappelle is really upset because he's not getting paid through that. But the contract that he signed said that was the agreement. So what I want to talk about today is what the Bible says about people who don't honor their agreement. Jesus tells a story in Matthew chapter 20, verses 1 through 16. He tells the story of a landowner. This landowner, he owned a whole lot of property. And one day he went out to his vineyard to go hire some workers to work on his property. So basically he told these workers, he said, I will hire y'all for 11 hours to work on my vineyard, and I will pay y'all this amount of money. The workers agreed. They said, okay, fine, we'll work in your vineyard for 11 hours, and at the end of 11 hours, you will pay us this amount of money. That was their agreement. Now, the workers were working all day in the hot sun, and they were working out there for about 10 hours. And when the last hour came around, another worker came to the landowner and said, hey, I'm looking for some work too. And the landowner said, okay, well, we got 1 hour left. Go ahead and work, and I'll pay you for the 1 hour. So here's where it gets kind of tricky. The worker who came at the end, he worked for 1 hour. And the workers, they worked for 11 hours. At the end, when it was time for everybody to get paid, the landowner gave everybody the same exact amount of money. He gave the person who worked 1 hour just as much as he gave the people who worked 11 hours. Now, as you can imagine, when the people who worked 11 hours, when they saw how much they got paid, and when they saw that they got paid the same amount as the guy who worked 1 hour, they got mad at the landowner. Now, the landowner and the workers, they had an agreement. He told them, if you work 11 hours, I will pay you this much. And the landowner agreed. They had an agreement, and the landowner, he basically held up his part of the agreement. He basically, at the end of 11 hours, he paid them exactly what he told them he was going to pay them. But the reason that the workers got so upset is because they saw that the guy who worked 1 hour, he got paid the same exact amount. So when they saw that basically the guy who worked 1 hour got paid the same as them, they went to the landlord and they said, basically, what's up with you? How you gonna pay us the same that you paying him? We worked for 11 hours and that guy over there, he worked for 1 hour. That's not fair. And the landowner looked at both of them and he said, what was our agreement? We had an agreement. The agreement was you work 11 hours and I pay you for this amount of money. And the landowner told him, the only way y'all should be mad is if I break the agreement that we had. Don't be looking at what I gave this guy over here. In fact, I think in the last verse 15, the landowner said, don't let my generosity cause you to be envious. That's an actual quote from the landowner. So the landowner looked at both of them and said, don't let my generosity cause y'all to be envious. Me and you had an agreement. And the only reason that you should be upset with me is if I break the agreement we had. And basically, it kind of reminded me of the Dave Chappelle situation, because Chappelle and Comedy Central, they had an agreement.
I signed a contract. Not just Netflix. HBO Max is streaming it too. People think I made a lot of money for Chappelle's show. They didn't have to pay me because I signed the contract. But is that right? Tell me. Perfectly legal because I signed the contract. But is that right?
Dave Chappelle made a choice. Now, in the Bible, Jesus says, there's a verse that says in Matthew chapter 5, it says, let your yes be yes and your no be no. In other words, he was saying, if you look at the context of that verse, Jesus was saying, don't be somebody that you have to swear to God, or you have to swear on your kids, or you have to swear on the earth. Don't be that kind of person that has to swear something. Just have enough integrity to where when you say yes, people know that it's yes. And when you say no, people know that it's no. This is a perfect example of the nature of human beings. Human beings, we naturally ever since the Garden of Eden, we make bad choices. We end up in bad situations. And then once we get in these bad situations, we try to blame people outside of ourselves for the bad situations that we're in. This goes all the way back. Yes, you guessed it. I'm going there. We got to go all the way back to the Garden of Eden. I've been trying to tell y'all for the longest, everything you need to know about human beings is in the story of Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve were basically, just like Dave Chappelle, they made a bad decision. And when they made the bad decision, they ended up in a bad situation. Once they got confronted about the bad situation, they would not take personal responsibility of the choice that they made to get in that bad situation. So basically, Adam and Eve did the same exact thing that Chappelle did. When God confronted Adam, he said, why did you eat from the forbidden fruit? And what did Adam say? He didn't take personal responsibility for it. He said, blame Eve. This whole thing was her idea. And then when God said, Eve, why did you do this? And Eve said, don't look at me, blame the serpent. This was his idea. The serpent tricked me. So now, what is Chappelle doing? Chappelle signed a contract. He agreed to, even though it was a messed up contract, and I will agree that that's not a contract that anybody should sign, he still made a choice to sign it. That's not Comedy Central's fault that you are stupid. Let me ask you this. Dave, if you're watching, I love you, brother. Don't take this personal. But I just want to ask you this. Let's just say that Comedy Central had actually paid you what you wanted to be paid. Let's say, I heard the show made like about $500 million. Let's say they gave you $500 million. And then afterwards, later on, after they gave you the $500 million, what if Comedy Central was to call you and say, Dave, you know what? We thought about it, and that money that we paid you, you wasn't worth $500 million. We realized that it was stupid of us to actually pay you what the contract said we should pay you. So we want some of our money back. We actually want half our money back. Now, Chappelle, if they said that to you, would you give them their money back? You ain't got an answer, because I know what the answer is. The answer is no. You wouldn't give them their money back. In fact, nobody on earth with common sense would give that money back. And you shouldn't. Now, I know that when you called Netflix and you asked Netflix to take your show off of Netflix because it made you feel bad that they would play or stream your show on Netflix, but They didn't take your show off because it's the right thing to do. And that's the one thing I think you're misunderstanding. They told you, okay, Dave, we don't want you to feel bad, so we'll take your show off. Listen, I don't care what they said. They did not take your show off because it was the morally right thing to do. They took your show off because you're Dave Chappelle and because they didn't want to get in a bad business relationship. They just gave you $60 million to do like 3 stand-ups. So they're not going to mess up that relationship. This has absolutely nothing to do with morality because Chappelle morality is you can't make an agreement and then go against the agreement because you feel bad. That's not on Comedy Central. That's not on Netflix. This goes to everybody out there. I'm going to say to y'all exactly what Jesus says in the Bible. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. If you say you're going to do something, do it. If you say, you sign a contract for like some student loans and you agree to pay them back, don't be rooting for Bernie Sanders to come and cancel all your student loan debt. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. Now, I want you to imagine something. Imagine that you hire somebody to come to your house and work on your door. You agree, you say, I will pay you $150 to fix my door. After you pay them $150 that you guys both agreed upon, the next day they call you and they say, you know what, I thought about it and that work that I did on your door, I believe it's worth more than $150. So because I believe it's worth more than $150, I would like you to give me at least $300, even though we agree on $150. Now, all you people out there that are saying Dave Chappelle is right, I want you to ask yourself, in that situation, would you give that door, the guy who fixed your door, would you give him $300? If your answer is no, you're basically a hypocrite.
I didn't think so either.
So that was basically the lesson for today. Dave Chappelle, love you, brother. I just disagree with your position on this whole, Comedy Central thing. Before I close, I just want to say this. There used to be a show back in the day called Good Times. Some of y'all probably heard of it. The whole entire cast of Good Times, when the show was done, this is the story that I heard. Basically, they offered everybody from the show a choice. You can either get paid one lump sum for all the shows that you guys have worked on, or you can get paid royalties. Everybody decided, let me get one lump sum. Black people, right? Yes. Everybody said, let me get one lump sum. Thelma from Good Times was the only one that said, I want royalties. And today, she is still getting paid from Good Times. Now, the thing is, word is that the other people from Good Times, the ones who are still alive, whoever they are, they're mad because they feel like they should still be getting paid from Good Times because that one lump sum that they took is probably all spent up, and now they wish they would have been like Thelma and chose royalties. So basically, they're making the same argument that Chappelle made. So I'm just trying to paint that picture so you can see how people don't really care about their own integrity when it comes to contracts, when it comes to money. You gotta start being smart. You gotta do what Jesus said. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. And if you say yes, and later on you realize that it was stupid for you to say yes, let that be a lesson to you to not say yes again without reading the contract. So thank y'all for tuning in today. Please like, subscribe, hit the like button, share this video, and I'll see y'all in the next one.